folks here this morning. Wow. Normal Tuesday morning for us. So I guess you're here for a work session with the Warren County Agricultural Society to discuss details relative to the boarding operation at the fairgrounds. We have Fair Board folks here. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Dana Letner, and I'm the president of the Warren County Agricultural Society. Thank you for having us this morning.
Morning.
So what you all have in front of you is a summary of what we went over as a board yesterday evening at a special meeting of the board of directors. And it is a summary of financials surrounding our recent decision at our regular board meeting in October to end our relationship with the harness racing renters. So that is what is in front of you today, and I'm happy to walk through it.
Please.
Okay. So the front page is just our agenda of our meeting, which this was just a special meeting, so our regularly scheduled board meeting is next Monday the 18th. But what you'll see before you is an executive summary of our horse operations expenditures and a percentage breakdown of each expense. I believe you guys should have that.
Are you referring to Exhibit 2?
Should be separate one, unless you're missing one. Well, I think Exhibit 1 might have missed your book, so I apologize about that. It is a cost breakdown of how we,
Okay, wait a second.
Yeah.
Is Exhibit 1 what you're referring to?
yes, and I
For which we
believe
only have a cover page?
we're missing a page in the book, and I apologize about that,
Okay.
so I will have to, I don't have the hard copy unless it's in one of these, but that's all right. Basically, this group went through an exercise of going over our utilities, electrical, expenses, propane, manure hauling, and what that cost breakdown is per stall. And that would be about $199 per stall, based off of our September usage, which was about 215 stalls that we rented out to the horsemen. So is it basically an overview year-to-date of our fiscal year. So I guess if we keep walking through, Exhibit 2 goes through each month, December through September 2024, December 2023 through September of 2024, of a balance sheet, income statement of the overall fairgrounds, an income statement of our horse rental side operations, and then a statement of our cash flows. So we operate off of a cash basis. Some of the public comments last night asked for accounts receivables, but we operate off of a cash basis. And in summary, the reason that this decision was made is because our board cannot continue to pay our bills surrounding the expense of the harness racing training facility. It was a financial decision. And I'm happy to walk through each month. I'm happy to just speak holistically that year-to-date, for the harness racing side, we're at a loss of $96,451.04. And just for the month of September, we're operating at a loss of $16,000 for operating that side. And ultimately, commissioners, we at the Agricultural Society hope to be responsible stewards of the property that you all own. We know that you all own this property. And every endeavor that we try to involve ourselves in, we hope to promote agricultural interests here locally in the county. And we understand and respect how prevalent the harness racing operation is in this county. We understand that. And ultimately, we hope that this discussion today, maybe we can come up with some sort of solution, but we're financially at our wit's end. And I do apologize for that exhibit. I'll see what we can do to,
We've
We
got
have it.
oh, you guys got it? Okay.
Yeah, and actually, it was distributed to us prior to the meeting.
Okay,
In
yeah, I
our
apologize,
package.
it's not in your hard copy.
I just didn't know if it was
We've
different
seen
from
it.
what we've
Okay.
seen before.
Mhm.
I reviewed it before you came today because it was in our package.
Awesome.
Thanks.
So just from a high level, since we're talking about the financial situation,
Sure.
you have multiple revenue streams that come into the fairgrounds. You all, and just so everybody knows, yes, and it's not the county commissioners, I mean, the people of Warren County own the fairgrounds. We hold title to all the property. So the commissioners control the property, taxpayers own the property. But by law, the Agricultural Society has a lease and you control it, top to bottom. And what you're sharing with us now are the financials, which showed me that essentially you're by the time you factor in all the revenue, all the stuff, all the fare, everything that you do during the year, you're gonna net maybe $200,000 from all operations? Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes, that's fair. All operations.
Yeah, all operations, ballpark, you're gonna bring in and net around 200 grand. However, one of your operations is this boarding. I was on a roll. So, one of your operations is this boarding operation, and you're saying you showed that the actual hard dollar cost of what it takes to have that operation is one level. You're not collecting that level, and so that activity is gonna cost you around $150,000 for the year, if you're 90-something now.
Yes.
If
Yes, that's fair.
It's 10, 12,000 a month, something like that, so you're gonna be upside down about 150 grand on that, although your total net operating income is around 200 grand.
Yes, that's fair. Thanks to some rentals that we do, we host the Apple Fest, as you guys know. We're a popular venue for weddings and celebrations, private events, different types of rentals, campsites, that sort of thing.
Can you walk us through a little bit of the history of this, because we can go back and talk about
The
the
past.
high-level history of the fairgrounds, which is super interesting. But we can also talk about this transition. So, from a lot of people's standpoint, it looks like, well, wait, this just happened, and wait, you're giving people a matter of weeks, you made this decision, is it rash, is it this? Tell us a little bit about were there negotiations? Did you talk to the association? Is there one association that represents the people that are actually in the stalls right now?
Sure, yes, I'm happy to answer all that. Maybe if we look at this current year that we're in, that'd probably be the best overview for recent events. So I must say that my current board of directors, this is probably the first time we've had such representation in our board of directors at the Ag Society of folks that grew up and are experts, subject matter experts in the harness racing side. And that has been incredibly helpful for us as a board to manage this relationship, have a better understanding of the stall usage and, how can invoices be better, that sort of thing. One of the first steps that the board moved to work towards was sign rental agreements. Because believe it or not, to your point, there's a long, interesting history of the fairgrounds and the Ag Society, and there's been horses on the fairgrounds for a very long time. We've had several renters that never really signed a piece of paper saying that they would have a rental relationship with us. So our first step was trying to clean up our rental agreement, which is in your packet, Exhibit 4. That's the most recent one that we asked all of our renters to sign. And unfortunately, we did not receive very many back. But first things first, let's really put things in writing and level set some expectations. When we started to do this, there was a very small interested party of horsemen that came forward, raised their hand, and said they wanted to work with the Ag Society. And we did have a couple meetings with them, partial meetings with them, and we were talking about potential solutions. Back on the board side, the Agricultural Society Board was, over the last 6 months, toggling, we need to raise our rent. Because until recently, our rent was only $125 a month, which it's very clear that our expenses far outweigh that. Ultimately, the board agreed to raise our rent to $150 per stall per month, with the understanding that we would receive more timely payment by enforcing an ACH on file or a credit card authorization form for our renters to sign. One piece of this whole thing that's rather troublesome is the complexity and the fluidity of the stall rental process. There's a lot of moving pieces as folks claim horses, or there's just changes in their business where that number of stalls per month is not always a flat number. So it's a constant change depending on the renter, and we felt that by enforcing an ACH or credit card or authorization form, that would bring us more towards holistic, timely payment. Unfortunately, we only received 4 of those back.
Out of how many?
43.
So there was 43 boarders that maybe had one horse, maybe had multiple horses?
It can vary, or a whole barn.
Okay, good. So 43 people that actually rented from the Ag Society, something, a stall to a barn, and you would have discussions with these folks and said, okay, we have to go up a little bit, it's not what we need, it's costing us $199, we'll agree on $150, so you're still cash flow wise upside down. But if we do this, we can't go around chasing money and payments. You need to do what most folks with any vendor do with it, which is an ACH or a credit card. And you're saying that 4 of the 43 actually did that?
That was as of our October board meeting.
When did you ask for that to be done?
I know that our staff has been emailing out, requesting that information, and we have even had some board directors go through the barn, requesting that information be completed and filled out.
Was it in October, or was it a month before that?
I want to say about a month before that.
So you asked about a month before that, and then within that next month, you got 4 responses.
Yes, sir.
Of the people that were delinquent, did any of them respond?
No.
Okay. I read your material, and I don't want to interrupt.
No.
If you're finished, okay. I read your material, and I didn't understand how you manage your operation, so I'm going to ask some questions there. But I want to tell you that, I've been in the horse boarding business for practically my entire life. And I even brought some pictures today. Can you show these up? Just for the heck of it, because some people didn't believe me when I said this originally when I ran for county commissioner. But we have a very active boarding operation at 2 farms that I own. And I don't know if they can show these on the screen. So, okay, well, I'll let her go. I'm going to continue on, and she can bring it up when she gets to it. So here's I noticed that you said that you had difficulty with managing it because you had to bring a lawsuit or something like that, or you had to do something to get, that by the way is a part of my farm. And I don't know what the clicker is going to do for me, but you can see I had 2 stables, we had an arena, outdoor rings, we had over 250 acres, and I spent my entire youth caring for horses. I owned 6 horses. I had a thoroughbred. I don't know why the Jockey Club requires these really odd names, but apparently it's because you can never have another name. And I had a thoroughbred named Ocean Relic Red. What that meant, I don't know. And so a lot of what I do, I'm very familiar with your structure. A lot of it did involve getting rid of manure. We never had to pay to get rid of it though, because people sell it and you could deliver it to places, so I don't completely understand your operation or whether you couldn't do that. And that's our older stable there, which was, and that's again the area, and, oh, that was me. I flipped a tractor once cutting the grass, and the other people were really excited that I did this. Any event, so I have been doing this for a long time, and I noticed your structure and how much you charge, and I did think it was low compared to what we're familiar with. And we had 3 different levels. We did, no care. You provide everything, your feed, your everything. You care for the horse. We don't touch your animal. Then we did one where we partially cleaned the stalls and we would feed and water twice a day. And then we did one with full care. So I'm very familiar with this, but now, are you aware that you don't have to file a lawsuit to deal with people who are, and I noticed your contract doesn't address this, so you didn't give up your lien rights, did you? Are you
Land
familiar with it?
rights?
Yeah, the Agistra lien, are you familiar with that? Under section 1311.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and 1311.49, are you familiar with those sections?
No, sir, not off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Well, and I'm not suggesting that you would want to take people's horses, but you can give 10 days' notice if they're not paying their rent, and then you can actually sell their horse at public auction. Probably if you did that a couple of times, people would pay. But I'm not saying that you had to do this, but you have a major weapon under Ohio law to address your delinquencies. And apparently, did you have an equine lawyer?
We do not have an equine lawyer, no, sir.
Okay. Do you have an accountant?
Yes, sir.
And is your accountant a CPA?
Yes.
Is he the one responsible for these things that we received?
He has
financials?
overlooked every piece of this document, and he was actually available via Teams at our board meeting last night.
Well, for example, if you were gonna have an accountant prepare this document, did he actually prepare the documents we saw?
No, sir, he overlooked the documents.
Well, what does that mean?
He holistically looked at the work that our staff and board put together.
Okay, so so normally what an accountant will do, and this is just for the public, it's not for you, because I know you know this, but normally, if you have an accountant doing your books and records and looking at what you're doing, you're gonna give him your bank account statements. You're gonna give him your check register, all your checks. You're gonna give him all of your income. You're gonna give him information about the sources of your income, so he can audit your books and records. Has that been done?
We do go through regular audits, and we are currently in a 4-year look-back audit with the state, with Keith Farber's office.
When did that start?
It ended in March. I want to say it started in December, late December, early January 2023, or 2024, sorry.
Okay. So right now, that's not been completed, I take it?
No, we have followed up with the state auditor's office, and I understand that there was an interruption in our audit to take care of some other things on their end, which we understand. And actually this morning, I believe our staff received an email that they're looking to meet up with us again and complete the audit.
Okay, so there's been a lot of, I've received a lot of communications, and I'm not saying that everything I'm being told is accurate, okay? And if anybody watched our meeting 2 weeks ago, I'm not making a judgment here, although I am surprised that you could be this delinquent and never have taken any action to correct the issues when you were given so many rights to do so under Ohio law. And so I'm going to come back to the question of your income. What is your arrearage? Actually, how much money that you say you're owed that you've not collected on horse boarding operations for this year?
For this fiscal year, $53,000 is still owed in outstanding rent.
Okay. And of this negative balance that you've got, you mentioned a negative balance. What is your negative balance on how you've accounted for your horse boarding operation just this year?
$96,451.
Okay. So apparently, even if people paid everything that you asked them to pay, you're $40,000 in arrears
Correct.
in order to cash flow.
And a lot of that's attributed to our costs outweighs the price.
Yeah, and
of
I had
the
another
install.
question about that too, but I noticed when I looked at your accounts that you allocate expenditures to the horse boarding operation for expenditures that you have over your whole operations, then you would give a percentage to the horse boarding operation for a lot of what you're doing. Would those expenditures still be paid regardless of whether the horse boarding operation existed?
Actually, our expenses would significantly decrease.
No, I'm talking about the ones that you split. In other words, you've got certain expenditures that you actually took a percentage of. I'm not sure, the next question I'm gonna ask you is why you took a particular percentage. But I'm asking you of those, not the ones like manure. I mean, I know that if you get rid of all the
You did a
horses.
staff time allocation, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
they
staff
did,
time
exactly. And so
allocation.
all I'm asking is, and that's more than just a staff allocation, there's a lot of other things that you're allocating. I'm just asking, in those areas where you allocated, is that expenditure a fixed expense that is not based upon whether you got horses or not? Or would you have to look at that to determine
I mean,
whether
but
that's the case?
it is a fixed expense, but the usage significantly increases. I'll give an example, water, right?
Okay.
Our water bill. It takes a lot of water to operate and treat our training facility track.
By
Without,
the way, do you pay a sewer charge on that? You're sure? How does Lebanon reduce that? Do you have a deduct meter? Or do they do some sort of allocation on that? Because I guess I'm taking it, do you have multiple water, taps or just one?
I believe we have one.
Well,
Yeah, one.
Actually, there's two, but they're in a loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does Lebanon deduct for the sewer charge? Because all your water for your horse is not going through the sewer system. How do they do that?
It's a line item on our bill, which,
No, that's what I'm asking.
okay.
How do they determine how much of the deduct to give you? And the only reason I'm asking you this, I get that that's a large expense, but usually water is cheap and sewer rates are high. So I'm curious as to how Lebanon deducts for that. Do you know?
I would have to get back with you
Okay,
on that.
that's okay. And so, going back to how you're doing this thing. So if you had raised your rates as you did in October, and when did you actually give official notice of raising your rates?
For the $150 a month,
Mhm.
we had a notice posted on the barns. I don't have it with me, but I believe it was the end of August.
End of August? And you told them you were gonna raise the rates as of October? Okay. And then, did some people object to that rent raise?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the rent raise that you increased it from? It was to the 150?
Yes. Originally, the board took action to increase the stall rent to $200 a month.
And I see that at $200 a month, you're gonna be breaking even.
But
according
that
to
was a 60-some% increase from the $125 a month that folks were originally paying. And with we did offer full barn discounts to renters that would rent an entire barn. It's less administrative work for our office, etc. The board took action to remove the full barn discount while also putting in a rent increase.
Okay,
So,
but ultimately, by the end of August, you posted a notice that you were gonna go up in October to $150 a month,
yes,
correct?
sir.
In that month, when we've gotten through October, correct? And are they required to pay at the beginning of the month?
They have so the invoices go out on the 1st of the month, and they're due by the 10th of the month.
So regardless of whether somebody was delinquent, and by the way, if somebody's delinquent in that 10-day period you give them, you send out the notice in the 1st of the month, do you do that by mail, or how do you communicate with people?
Mostly email. We don't really mail anything.
Okay, so by the end of October, what would have been your total income in October? Had everybody been paid the 150?
We have not gone over all of the rentals that have come in October so far. Everything you see is through September.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm asking you about October.
But in October, I think we had about over 200 horse stalls rented. I don't have that before you today to show you what's been collected.
So I've been hearing numbers that you have 300 horses.
We do not have 300 horses
Okay.
right now.
So is that because after you announced that people were to leave, a lot of people have left? Is that why? Or is it in October there were 200 horses?
There's definitely ebbs and flows throughout the season, depending on racing, babies, things like that. But as far as the recent downturn, it's very possible that the recent downturn was due to stall rent increase.
Okay.
I myself can only speak to what I've heard, and
By
I've
the-
heard that some folks are looking for somewhere else that is more cost effective, as 150 was still rather high.
Okay, so just so the public knows this, I read, and I did not realize this, how many stalls do you have out there? It's over 600, is that right?
Maybe if you're including tax stalls and everything, but horse
So you have
stalls,
stalls that are dedicated just for the horses' tack?
yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
for the public to understand what you're talking about there, that's where they're, maybe the harnesses or the bridles or the things, okay, so it's not where you put a horse.
Correct.
Okay, again, you and I know that, but the people who are listening to it
No
wouldn't
problem.
necessarily know it. All right, so, is that the reason why you're doing this, is because your horses, you don't have enough horses to justify it?
The reason why we're doing this, like increasing our rent costs, is
No, I'm talking about telling everybody to leave.
we can't pay our bills.
Okay,
I
well,
mean,
we're gonna get to that in a
That's the reason why
minute.
it happened.
But in October, you had around 200 horses, and you can't tell me what it would have been, but I could do the math, if it's 150, you know, so it's gonna be 200 times $150, right? Something like that?
Mhm.
Okay. How much of that, and you don't know how much of that you collected?
I can't speak before that,
But
too.
it-
The board
but-
hasn't reviewed
But
that.
because you only got 4 credit cards, and you don't know how delinquent you are in October, on October 21st, you had a meeting and you evicted everybody. Is that right?
Yes,
But you didn't know what the rate of payment was in that month before you did that?
in that month,
Yes.
in September,
No, October.
we haven't reviewed October yet.
Yeah, but in October, man, I'm missing something here then, I don't understand. But wasn't it on October 21st that you told everybody to leave?
Yes, based off of September data.
Oh, so you didn't care about October data? That's the month that you raised your rent.
We do care about October data, but
But you didn't use that data to evict people.
Sounds like they didn't need to.
No, I mean, hang in. I thought that the whole point of this is that you raised your rent, you wanted to see what your collections were gonna be, you changed this issue about your credit card business because some people weren't paying, so you wanted to be able to charge them. You didn't know about your lien rights, okay, fine. But you evicted them regardless of the October thing? So it didn't matter what happened in October, is that, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, but is that what you're saying to us?
I don't have any thunder.
I know, and I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm just saying that a point was made, that the eviction was not based upon your increasing your rent, seeing how people would comply, getting the credit card information, was based upon a delinquency in September?
it was based off of getting the credit card information. And if I may, the credit card authorization forms were due by October 1st.
Because that was all part of the settlement, right? I mean, again, this has been going on for months.
This has been going on.
Of going back
Yes.
and forth on how much, we're losing money, we gotta do something, it's $199, we can't pay $199. People, I assume, what I heard, agreed, okay, we can do 150, okay, if we do 150, we're still losing money, but you gotta do this. You gotta give us your credit card or an ACH, and 4 people out of 43 did comply with that, and you knew that in September, and it was like, okay, this deal's, it's gonna be the same old, sounds like that's what you're saying?
And if I may, as of recent weeks, while we understand some folks have come forward and tried to understand if they owed anything, obviously, since all of this has come to the surface, prior to that, there was a lot of back debt. Okay, today it's $53,000, but prior to today, it was much larger.
Okay, but, you know, Okay, I still don't understand this point. I thought that you instituted the new rates and the new rules in October. That's when it started, is that right? You announced it beforehand,
Yes,
but you started in October, and you didn't even wait to see what happened in October before you evicted everybody. And you didn't just evict people who were paying. Obviously, you could evict people that are not paying, but you evicted people that were paying too, and that had always paid. Is that right?
yes.
Why would you do that?
I did not vote, but we had to make a financial decision to figure out how we're going to survive as an
Okay,
organization.
and I understand that, but what I don't understand is why you would have done it before you saw the October results. Okay, that's just a question that I have that maybe you can answer later. Now.
Did you have 100% collection in September at the $125 rate?
We've never had 100% collection.
Okay, but then how much did you collect in September?
If you look at holistically, the
Well,
entire
what's
year,
holistically mean?
fiscal year,
You're not looking at September numbers, you're just gonna look at the whole year numbers?
that's what I brought before you.
September, they invoiced 36,425 and they collected 25,719.
Okay, so is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay, do you actually keep a separate account for every animal that's there?
a separate account.
A separate account, you either keep so in order to determine who's delinquent and not delinquent, you're gonna have to have an account for your actual renters and the animals that are housed, because you're having a fluctuation, right? Okay, so I'm asking this question. Do you have a separate account for every animal and renter? The individual that has stalls and horses there, do you have a separate account for each one of them?
Each renter.
Each renter. And then you keep track with regard to each renter as to how many stalls they've got, so that how many $125 or $150 they owe, right?
Yes,
Okay. And that's a document that's maintained someplace, correct?
yes.
Can you provide that to us?
For each month?
Yeah,
thus
for
far?
September. I'm really interested in September now, because that's the one you're focusing on. Because do you know how many people were delinquent then in September? I see that you've got a total figure of $10,000, which is pretty significant. And by the way, of that $10,000 in September, did those people make that up in October? Any of them?
I don't have that information in
Okay.
front of me today to tell you.
All right. And we have no October information. So let's go back to, you baked into your numbers, according to these records, a shortfall. That you're not collecting enough, even at the 150 rate, but certainly not at the 125 rate. And I've said, I'm really familiar with boarding operations. I've never seen such low rates. But that's what you've been doing. And that's what everybody's agreed on. And that's the rental rates that everybody's had. And so you've conceded a loss every year that you make up through your other operations.
Yes,
And you're actually to the good. I mean, I made some, they weren't meant to be flippant, but at my last, maybe some people listened to it in your agricultural society, because I knew that you weren't borrowing money and stuff like that. But you've actually got operations that make money. Okay.
and thankfully, we've actually received some grant funding, through the ODD, for county fairs and OHHA. We have received some grant funding as well that has assisted us.
All right, so do you, since you have records for every renter and the stalls they have, do you know who are actually the delinquent people on a consistent basis?
Yes,
And do you know how many horses that they have?
there's stalls, we count stalls,
Okay,
yes.
right, okay. And what kind of discussions or enforcement actions do you have with these people?
That's a wonderful question. We'd like to reach out to them more, but in the past.
You give them a written notice when they are delinquent?
No,
do you-
sir, we have not.
Do you collect rents from horse boarders in cash?
Yes,
How do you keep track of that?
through our office, it has to go through our office.
How do you, I mean, this is a really dangerous way to do business, but, okay. So, how much of your money, do you know how much is is provided in cash?
I couldn't tell you that right now for this operation. I do know
You
many.
you do understand when you're collecting cash, that's, it's a dangerous way to do, and it's not an illegal way to do business, all right? But it's a dangerous way to do business because somebody who collects it, I take it that you give somebody a receipt when they give you cash?
Mhm.
Okay, and you keep those receipts?
Yes.
All right. And now, this is a rumor, because I've had people contacting me, and they say that they paid in cash, but it wasn't recorded. Do you know whether that's ever happened?
I,
Okay,
Well,
I'm only asking you the question,
I've
not
heard
because
this-
I know it. I don't know the answer to the question, but except I have received information, because people communicated with me, and they may have been communicating with my colleagues too. But we can't kibitz with each other. If we talk to each other before this meeting, there'd be a violation of the Sunshine Law, so that doesn't happen. Not with this group, anyway. And all I can tell you is that the only reason why I raised the question is because if you've got a cash transaction, somebody in your office can collect it, maybe they give a receipt, maybe they don't, or maybe they, I don't know what all, and then it might disappear. And I'm not accusing anybody of any wrongdoing, okay? But I advise you not to do that in the future.
well, I think, sir, to your point, this is part of the reason why we wanted to enforce the ACH and credit card. It's a much cleaner process overall.
Right, but you didn't give it a chance for that to work, because you instituted that in October, you get 4 people, and then you close everything down, and you not only penalize the people that are paying for a long time paying without any problem, you're penalizing the people that are, which, from my standpoint, is strikingly unfair. But I get the fact that you've baked in your operations at a loss. Now, and I would say this for the public too, and I'm not responsible for high law, but we've got this Racino, we make, I don't know, and Martin, I've asked for that information, he can give it to us in a minute here, but we make over $3 million some dollars a year on that Racino. And Racinos must have harness racing, to operate with their license. They must have harness racing. So there's a... I'm not completely sure why I got that, but thank you. So harness racing is valuable to us because it ultimately generates, even though most of it's probably coming from slot machines, I don't know what all, but you have to have harness racing there, and they have to have the horses for harness racing, which are largely coming from our stable. So there is a synergistic relationship between us and that, which is an advantage to our bottom line in this county. That's a substantial amount of money for us. So I want the public to realize that this isn't just like, we've got no reason to want to do this. We do. So I'm going to come back now to your...
Can I?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop for the
You've been on a
time being.
roll there.
Yeah, I agree. So let me,
I'm not
I'll
the brightest
pass it over.
bulb in the chandelier here, but I just have a few questions that I'm just trying to wrap my arms around, because I'm not in the horse boarding business. And I've heard it talked about what the market rate is for horse boarding. Can you tell me what the market rate is in this market for horse boarding?
I think just like what Mr. Grossman mentioned, that varies on the type of facility. I've been told that with our $150 a month, that we would be one of the most expensive in the state.
So $150 is more expensive than the market rate.
I think she's saying for harness.
That's what,
racing
I'm only
horses.
speaking to harness racing, yes.
So
Yes.
$150 is more expensive than the market rate. And is $125 what you previously were charging the market rate?
Yes, since September of 2021.
So $125 was the market rate, but your costs are $200.
Yes.
So why would you continue to be in this business if you can't cover your costs at the market rate? You obviously have people who want to purchase your stall rental for $125, but your costs are $200. Why would you continue to take a $75 loss per stall, or even at the $150 compromise, why would you continue to take $50 loss per stall?
Yeah, honestly, I think this is why and how the board recently came to that conclusion, that it's no longer in our best interest to continue financially. Again,
So this is a business decision that the board has made and has said,
solely,
we can't continue to operate at the price that existing renters want to pay. So the alternative is, if they don't want to pay more, then we have to go out of this business. So your intention is to be out of the horse boarding business.
that's what this board took action to do, December 1st, yes.
Okay. And so up until this point in time, when we look at your financials, other parts of your business have been subsidizing the loss from this part of the business, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that has ranged anywhere between $50,000 and $90,000 a year based on what we're looking at. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And so what has been making up that difference between what your collection and rents have been versus what you're paying out? What part of your business has been subsidizing that?
I would say it's been our rental facilities, so, we
So
host
are you
events.
talking about the facility that taxpayers invested $3 million in to provide you with a revenue stream in order to support the fair and activities on the fairgrounds?
I would answer that question as, yes, that is one of the buildings, and recently, and over the years, it's not been overnight, while at one point in time that might have been enough to offset the deficit has far surpassed that. And hence our ultimate conclusion that if we were to continue to charge what we charge and receive what we receive, and nothing else changes from the harness horsemen's, we would ultimately become insolvent and not be able to pursue our purpose and mission of supporting agriculture in the county, being responsible stewards of the 94 acres, because that offset, the deficit surpassed that.
Okay, so the event center and the other buildings that you rent out for events, you mentioned the Apple Festival,
Mhm.
and there are weddings and other things that are expos and so forth. At one point, was able to subsidize so you could be at a zero balance or something in the plus. But something has changed over the years, and that no longer is the case. What do you attribute that change? Is it increase in costs across all the enterprises? What do you attribute that to?
Ultimately, yes, increase in costs. We've seen drastic increase in costs. And for the group, prior to the recent rental increase, September 2021, stall rent was at $100 and then was increased to $125. So in 3 years' time, our utilities, our expenses have significantly increased.
And
in
so
that
are
time.
you current on your utility bills and your water bill and your horse manure removal bill and?
If you turn to Exhibit 5, these are the outstanding payables for the Warren County Agricultural Society as of today, and the date of each invoice. And you mentioned utilities. Currently, we have $37,000.
That's not our.
It's not
Exhibit
five, yeah.
I'm sorry, three, sorry.
3.
Currently, we're $38,000. Oh,
So
to our member.
you owe the city of Lebanon and their utilities, you owe them $37,000.
Mhm.
You owe your manure removal company $38,000. And then there's a bunch of smaller outstanding invoices.
And if I may, the main account cash balance that's there, we do have a separate account with the Ag Society, where our Ohio Department of Development grant is housed. We do have some grant funding that we could not use to pay such bills right now. Those funds are designated for other, items, so.
Is this,
They're restricted is what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask a question?
No, go ahead.
All right, on your outstanding payables, is that for the fairgrounds as a whole, or is that just for horse boarding operations?
There's items on here that has nothing to do with the horse operations. An example is, we owe the Warren County 4-H committee for lemonade from the fair.
Well, wouldn't that also include your utility bill?
Yes, it would, a percentage.
I understand. Okay, that's just one clarification of that.
That was helpful.
Yeah, I just want to understand, because again, we're talking sometimes very much in the weeds of your operations. I'd like to understand maybe at a higher level, because essentially what I'm hearing is the board's made a decision, we kind of don't want to be in this business anymore.
Financially,
Right.
it's not.
But is it, so question number one, when you say financially, is it part of that also, and again, it's the nature, and I'm certainly no expert in this, but the relationship with a horse boarding operation inside of a city limit, is that problematic? Because I've also heard something that there's higher restrictions or the groundwater stuff and runoff, that generally
Yeah.
horse boarding operations are not inside of city limit. Is that been a problem?
So I actually received an email this morning, that the city of Lebanon would like to do a code inspection of our property, which has never been done, by the way. There's been a lot of rumors and hearsay out there that,
And when did you first hear about that problem?
where,
When?
when, about an inspection
Inspection or code violations?
today.
That's the
As far
first
as
time?
electrical, everything today. Prior to today, while I myself had not been officially made aware, there have been 2 complaints. One complaint about, I guess, asphalt clippings towards the frontage of the property, and another complaint about manure runoff.
Okay, so, but I want to go back to this code violation business, because I actually heard about this before you did, which is curious to me. All right, and on the day you guys, the Ag Society, voted to tell everybody to leave by December 1, did you also pass another resolution or adopt something else related to the city of Lebanon?
Yes, we agreed.
What was that?
Yes, so the Agricultural Society agreed that we would have open dialogue between you all as our property owners and the city of Lebanon about future opportunities
What do you mean by that?
with our lease.
Okay, by the way, did you know that you don't have a lease with us any longer?
I learned that in your meeting that you had about 2 weeks ago or thereafter. That's when I
Well,
learned.
we didn't know about it at our meeting, but we got it confirmed.
That day, or,
Yeah, that day we got it confirmed, and it was being checked on that you guys, you entered a lease, you had 8 5-year options to renew, and you didn't renew it in July of 2023. You're aware of that?
I'm now aware of that. We don't even have, until recently, we have not even had a signed copy of the lease in our office.
Okay, and are you also aware that we are entitled to receive financial statements from you, and we've not been receiving them?
For the event center, yes.
I think for your entire operations, we haven't been receiving them.
I've never been requested for the financials.
All right.
Bruce, can you tell, what is the status of that, the lease situation?
What Commissioner Grossman is referring to is the 2009 lease. The 2016 lease had 2 5-year renewal terms. The first term expired December 31st, 2021. The Ag Society was required to renew 60 days prior to December 31st, 2021, and they did not do so. So that lease expired, so they default and are operating under the statutory directive that gives them the right to control and manage the fairgrounds.
And now, just to go back a little bit, just for everyone to understand this. I've actually been doing this a very long time, 20 years now, and when I first took office, this was one of the biggest issues that I saw. I came in and, wait, we own this fairgrounds. And there's a private enterprise completely doing it, and we don't even have a lease, even though we own it. So that was super interesting to me and Bruce, and we worked for several years, and the relationship with the Agricultural Society went from basically non-existent to, for the most part, pretty good. For a while, we were getting a lot of information for some period of time, and I agree that I haven't really heard much about operations out there once we did the event center and was doing that, but my question related to at the big level, and so now we've opened up, I was asking about the horse boarding operations inside of a city, because someone mentioned that to me, that can be problematic, and now it's opened up another path of, well, wait, if the Ag Society doesn't want to be in the horse boarding business, simultaneous to that, you're saying, well, wait, maybe we talk to the city about developing part of the fairground, even though we own it.
I'm so sorry, sir. The conversation was only about a lease.
Okay, so leasing part of the fairgrounds, potentially.
Before anyone from the city could speak to you all, they felt like they needed to speak to us first.
Well,
And
what-
so that's what that was.
May I interject something? Okay, now I'm lost. You know, and by the way, I do want to go back to something else, but I'm gonna follow up on this first. So when you took the vote to evict all of your horse boarders, including the people that paid, which are the majority, and without knowing what your October collections were, you also entered into some sort of resolution to approach Lebanon, and that was about leasing property?
I'm sorry, sir. We did not approach Lebanon. They approached us
Oh, okay, well, when did they approach you?
for the October meeting, sir.
Before the October meeting?
No, we spoke to the board about it in our October meeting.
Okay, well, when did the Lebanon approach you?
Weeks before the October meeting, sir.
And was that to lease property from you?
We don't have property to lease.
Well, you know what? You don't lease property from us either, apparently. But the.
We all learned that a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago.
I
Yes.
know. And I'm sorry, when I was informed about this, I was not informed of the maybe I was informed of the 2016, but that you didn't re-up in 2021 when you had a previous one, you could re-up in 2023.
Well,
And I
apparently
guess-
the city of Lebanon could come and talk to us
Well,
without discussing
the
it.
city of Lebanon can come and talk to us anytime they want to. I mean, we're an open book to this, anybody in our jurisdiction, about our fairgrounds, and we've actually sold property to the city of Lebanon. And we own the property, so if we were gonna sell something to them, they'd have to come to us, not you. But they came to you about something, but you're not sure what exactly it is.
No, sir, they were not going to approach you. It's my understanding, and I'm not the city, so I cannot speak for them, and I will not. But they wanted to speak to us as an agricultural society about this ahead of speaking to you all.
Oh, okay, and is that the context in which the zoning violations came up?
I have no idea. I cannot speak for that. I'm telling you, I can show you my phone where I received an email this morning about December 5th, the city would like to conduct a code inspection. And that was as much as a surprise to me as it is
Okay,
you
do
all
you
hearing
know
about
what
it.
the code violations may be?
I am certain, I'm sure of it. We probably have some electrical code violations.
Okay.
Which is a problem, because I was there when we had a barn that tragically burned down.
We've lost a couple, sir.
Lost
Yes.
people's lives.
But of course, you guys maintain, you're responsible as handling this to maintain the code status or whatever.
Well, if they don't have a lease, I don't know what they're responsible for at all. It seems like that's our responsibility, so perhaps the city of Lebanon should be noticing us that on the 5th, they're gonna make an inspection and advise us if we're in violation.
You
I mean,
could-
there isn't a lease here, we own the property, if we're in violation,
It's on us.
that's on us.
I am not sure of that, but you could be right, but the under state law, the person who manages this property, if it's used for a fairground, is the agricultural society, regardless of the lease. And that's something that I inquired about with our law director, and he also provided us with attorney general opinions that even would suggest that even when you're not using the property for the fair, you might be in control of it too. I don't read the law that way, but that's apparently how our attorney general has read it. And so I don't know whether this comment is accurate.
I think we move on from this subject simply because code violations we take seriously. Now we know, we know.
Yeah, but
And
there's
so
something
we're
else that I
gonna-
wanted to follow up on that, David. I'm sorry, Commissioner Young. Because here's the point. Why are they bringing that up now?
Can't
I
answer
don't
that, please.
understand that. Why, and I will tell you that I received information about this a couple of weeks ago, right after our meeting, where we brought this up. I was the one that initiated the discussion. I'm hearing from Lebanon about code violations and about Lebanon's council taking a tour of the property. Had you heard about that too?
A tour of the property.
A tour of the fairground, racetrack, the stabling operation, the property. Had you heard about a tour by Lebanon Council or their staff and or about that?
I'm unaware of a tour by council.
Did they
or
do
anything
that, do you
like
know?
I'm not sure, but, I mean, anyone could take a tour at any time of the fairgrounds. It's pretty open.
Okay,
So
so let me go back. If you had actually managed your contracts and collected delinquencies, would you, because I believe you could have done this. I've already explained to you how you have tremendous lien rights with the Adster lease, lien. But if you'd done this and collected all the money that you're always entitled to collect, would you be telling these people to leave?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, wouldn't it have been better to have gotten an attorney that understands the law and to actually go after and collect them? And then I'm gonna ask a second question. Are you allowing horses who are owned by somebody, obviously, to leave your premises when there's a delinquency relating to that horse stabling?
I will say, when there's a delinquency, I mean, it's a very open facility, right? When they leave, they leave.
Yeah,
We
but you
don't really
understand you
control-
have a lien right on these animals.
Yeah.
We have
And
not
you
exercised that
lose
right.
your lien right if you have a delinquency and you allow that animal to leave, you lose the best leverage you have to ensure the payment of your rent. So that's why I'm asking you whether you kept accounts for each one of these, whether you know what you're doing, whether you're allowing horses to leave from stalls that are not being paid for. And because all of this comes down to the question I just previously asked you, which is if you were properly managing this and collecting your rent, you wouldn't be shutting down. We've already established today, I think, that that's not happening. You're not properly managing this to collect. So I'm asking this question. If you know who's delinquent, you know what stalls that they're in, are you allowing those animals where you have a lien right to leave with the delinquency in force or existing?
Sir, we do have counsel, and we have not exercised that lien
Who's your
right.
counsel?
Kurt Irie.
Who?
Kurt Irie.
Who's your accountant?
Sean Fraunfelter.
And
He's our
is he a CPA?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how long have these people been employed by you?
I believe Kurt took over from our previous attorney that retired in about 2016, I want to say. And our CPA, I know ever since I've been on the board, he's been working with us, I can
Okay,
say.
let's go back up to a higher level again. So
Yes, sir.
now we talked a little bit about the city, or, because I'm trying to get to, should the operation be there? Is honestly what I'm, the pros and cons, because I have a fairly open mind about this right now. Tell me about was 300, now 200-ish, 40-something renters. Tell me about the composition of those. Are those almost all in the business of harness racing?
I would say almost all.
Okay.
I could not say all. I do believe we have some renters who are not currently racing.
If I was a judge, I'd be finding so many of you right now. It's unbelievable. With cell phones off, please.
And if I may, you said you have an open mind. We understand that this has been a very impactful decision that the board has made. And I want this group to be made aware that this is a financial decision, but that the Ag Society, we meet again Monday. Last night, we had a packed room, which I wish every meeting was like that. But last night was simply a discussion over what you're seeing today, and we meet again on Monday.
Which is why I'm trying to take it back to a higher level.
Yes, sir.
We're pretty good at financial stuff, and financial decisions are one thing. That's why I'm trying to get to the core of, should that operation be there? And is that, in reality, what the board, your board, is thinking? So essentially, you have 95% of the occupants that are engaged in a private enterprise that actually competes at a privately owned facility, but yet this is almost like the training grounds
Yes,
for
this
that?
is a training facility, yes.
Right. So, there's two schools of thought on that. Well, wait, why is the public involved with providing a facility to a private business, people that own horses, that are gonna go and then compete at a private business that generates tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and the taxpayers are subsidizing that? That is one school of thought. However, the other school of thought would be, there is a long history of equine greatness inside of Warren County. There's been all this tremendous growth. The horse industry is important, agriculture is important here, and that a good deal from the taxpayers of providing this facility benefits the county as a whole, because this industry produces all of this revenue for everyone. So there's a counter argument there. And I'm trying to get to that point, because I wish, again, I'm a pretty transparent guy, and when I think about, it does not thrill me to have private business operating on public property. It just doesn't. And I fought that a lot when I first got into office, because it was even a worse situation more egregious than what it is right now. However, there's an argument of it should be there. But I also particularly don't like kind of backdoor deals that are like, well, wait a second, maybe if you guys get these folks out, maybe another governmental entity is coming in and saying, hey, let's do this, especially in the context of getting a code violation, which is remarkable today, when we haven't had one. That doesn't sit well with me.
So, sir, something I didn't mention earlier is we do speak with other county agricultural societies, other fairgrounds across the state. And while not every fairgrounds has harness racing and has a training facility like we do, it does seem that there's variance in the involvement from funding from a public side to those fairgrounds that might offer a harness racing training facility. And while we do receive reimbursement from you all for our security at the fair, our officers that work the fair for us, and obviously we built a beautiful event center. When it comes to, for public use, when it comes to this, we haven't requested funding for this, and that is something that other fairgrounds have across the state. And I don't know this is fact, but perhaps that is why their costs their pricing per
They're being
stall.
subsidized, there's no doubt about it. And I've talked to some of those folks, and they're actually looking at this decision, because a lot of those communities don't necessarily like subsidizing it, so they're trying to see, and that's why I'm trying to legitimately gather information,
Yes, sir.
not being an expert on this, of the pros and cons of basically a publicly subsidized, at least to the tune of $50 a month per stall, sounds like it could be subsidized, and either through the fairgrounds total operations, which by law, we are required to put on a county fair. And you
Yes.
guys do a nice job with that. And the 4-H program is critically important to this county, and we want to encourage those activities. This is a private enterprise, people that are engaged in a business that then compete at a privately owned track. And I'm going back and forth on, that's why I kept trying to get to the high level of, should we be involved with this? And so there's a legitimate argument that we should, because people benefit throughout the whole county. And as I remember, this was a big deal, and I don't know that folks know, but one of the things I actually did, way back when, I negotiated the deal with Churchill Downs. When they stayed and decided to be here, I had the CFO of a major company yelling at me, like, people are trying to get us to come to their community. You're trying to get a check out of me. I said, welcome to Warren County. You want to stay here, we need something. They owned a lot of deferred maintenance on that facility. There was no lease, correct, Bruce? Back in the day, and we ended up getting them to give a check for $2 million, something? It was.
That in addition to the trotting clubs, we got money.
Yeah, and then from the people that were actually the leaseors. So we got a significant amount of money for them to stay in the county by the people that then were going to benefit from being in the county. So there's a long history of this fairgrounds, and we don't underestimate the importance of the harness racing, because it is under the law to have that. Miami Valley Gaming, they have to do this activity. And there are a portion of the racers that are boarded at this facility. There's just no questioning that. So that's where I'm trying to get to the board who, you know, we assume under Ohio law, we lease this facility to you. What is the real answer to the question? Again, I'm pretty transparent. If you don't want to be in this business long-term, it's too much of a pain, we've got to deal with the city, we've got to deal with this, then I would like just a straightforward answer. Yeah, we'd like to exit this business. If it's, no, we're okay being in this business, at least for a period of time longer, but we don't want to lose a bunch of money on it, because then that degrades our ability to do the other things that we're mandated to do, like hold a county fair and do the 4-H programs. That seems like a reasonable thing to me, that you're basically okay if you're close to break even on the boarding operation?
Yes, so the latter, to your point, I would say is where our board stands today. This is not malintent of we don't want to be a part of this business. It strictly has to do with, by continuing in this manner, we're not able to focus on the core of our organization of putting on a fair. It could take things away in the future. There's a little bit of fear about the financial stability if we continue this like this. So to the latter, you know, if the Agricultural Society, and with the help of you all, the oversight of you all as our commissioners, our property owners, and I understand that recently there is a horsemen's group put together. If all could come together with a financially healthy decision for all involved, the Ag Society is not against the harness racing industry, the horseman business. It's just the financial health of it all. But
Okay.
to your point, we are in the city limits, and I don't know what the outcome of this will be. I just learned about it this morning.
Right,
This-
the two non-negotiables right now, even regardless of the discussion on stalls, are, number one, you need to get your lease current with us, and I think our prosecutor will do that forthwith. But also, code violations, that whether it's you or us, now we know. That's gotta be taken care of, period, end of story. So just, we take that stuff very seriously, especially in the context, there was a tragic problem there years ago. And I know that firsthand, it does not sit well with me. I think that, and the other thing, when talking to the folks at Miami Valley Gaming, their position is that we pay the Horseman Association, or one of the Harness Racing Association, they're like, our purses have gone up so much, there is millions and millions of dollars that we give back to the horse associations. Shouldn't those folks be stepping up? And I think you kind of mentioned that the association should be, if someone's subsidizing this, perhaps they could be. I almost think, hearing more and more about this, and we could literally debate this issue ad nauseum for the next 3 hours, I think we could do a deal right now that would, I don't want to say kick the can down the road, but we could give you a little bit of financial security while we're trying to work out a financially viable plan. One of your board members sent me an email, and it was, again, there's so many issues that come before us, I had kind of forgotten this. They went back and listened to all the tapes and said, you know, Commissioner Young, back in 2011, you said this is not a sustainable business model. And I guess I had said that. And now, 13 years later, you're saying it's not a sustainable business model. So we need to help rectify that. And there is a free market in place here, and I am cognizant of the fact, even if it costs $199, we were only paying $125. We're barely getting by. We're not in this industry to make a bunch of money. We think it's great. It's family business. We do all these things because it's good for the community. I get that. You know, they're not necessarily money motivated by everybody, but that's the free market, that you need to have some sort of a balance of the pros and cons of engaging in that. So I think there's a deal to be made to where we can defer this decision, because I don't feel good about saying everybody's out December 1. If you're asking for our opinion, again, you know, I think we do have a say in it. It's ultimately been your decision, but I don't personally feel good about saying, y'all gotta be gone right in, and as I understand it, the season is coming up, what, in January or
Yes.
something? Yeah, I mean, which is not good. That give everybody a little bit more time to breathe and work this out and see, because again, even if, because I'm not taking the position of one party's all at fault, because for everybody, and people are in the room, that your landlord came in and said, give us an ACH or a credit card and you get to stay, and 4 of you did it out of 43, I'd kick you out, to be honest with you. You need to play ball. I mean, this is a symbiotic relationship. It's back and forth to where if they're trying to be a reasonable party, and again, we appreciate your board because essentially, are you volunteers? Or
We're all volunteers.
Yeah,
I'm on
you're-
vacation.
Yeah,
Because
well,
right
well,
now-
thank you for doing this, and I appreciate the public and everybody that's interested. Everybody's been really respectful, and this is the way we try to do things inside of Warren County, especially with differing points of view, of trying to have an open discussion of, here's where it is, and now let's dig deeper into it. And Commissioner Grossman's brought up some good, very detailed, probably courses of action for you.
Yes.
That it sounds like you didn't even know about. So there are some ideas here moving forward, but I think we could essentially give everybody a little bit of room to breathe. We come up with some sort of installment to get you back up to current on some things, a supplemental, and then give everyone maybe till May 1 and say, you know, your board, the association, your renters, everyone can basically have a deal done by over this next few months and get through this season, or you're out. And if you don't come up with a deal, at least it gives people through this season to where now you have free market options of trying to go find the best home for your business that's outside of this fairgrounds if this deal isn't concluded. Because now it went from clearly your board talking to individuals or what have you. Now everybody knows, and everybody knows you're serious.
Yeah.
And everybody knows we don't like people that don't pay their bills. You need to pay your bills in Warren County. And so I think everybody's hearing that clearly from our standpoint. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of, even though it's been going on for months, it's a matter of a few weeks, everybody has to go move their business to somewhere new, and 100 horses have done that. There's a couple of 100 people or horses that are still involved, and you know, dozens of people that, and then all the people that support those people, all of those things are in peril right now. So I think giving everyone a little bit of time would be prudent, in my opinion. Commissioner Jones, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with asking the Agricultural Society to rescind the eviction and extend on a short-term basis for 6 months, under the $150, which is what I think you're suggesting. I'd be more inclined to say the actual costs should be collected at $200, but, and that's just actual operating costs. There's nothing factored in for the property itself in that. So, but at about $150, and all arrears need to be paid, and it should be done electronically at the beginning of the month, while we can work with all of the parties to see if there's a way to come up with a more sustainable plan. I mean, you know, I sit and think about when I was in the legislature and the Racinos went to be, which everyone in this room knows, I was not a supporter of it. And this county was the only county that was not gonna get money from the state in order to transition. And we were able to work together to ensure that happened, because this is in my view, and my argument to the governor at the time was, this is a public asset. It's always been a public asset, and the public shouldn't lose once again because people want to use gaming to be the source of everything that's gonna solve all of our ills in the community. And in getting those resources, my hope was there would be a more sustainable plan put forward to be able to operate the fair and perpetuate and invest in 4-H, which were two things that I care a great deal about. And so that hasn't happened really in a way that is clearly sustainable. And, you know, I think we've got to come up with a solution that allows us to be able to maintain the public purpose, which is the county fair and our agricultural history, and including the education of our young people about agriculture. That's what's in the public interest, and that's what's at risk here if we don't have a model that we can sustain. And, you know, I think we have to recognize, you know, how much taxpayer money are we willing to continue to put into this endeavor to continue to subsidize, whether it's building an event center or whether it's, you know, putting in some money temporarily to get things caught up so the agricultural society is kept whole while we're trying to work out a deal. I mean, we've got to have a real conversation about this property and how we're going to maintain the express public purpose, but do it in a way that's sustainable over time. So, you know, I certainly would be united behind the common purpose of finding a landing spot for 6 months, that we, you know, maybe Dave, I don't know if you wanted to set up some sort of committee or something, or a meeting or something to bring parties to the table, but I don't think we can expect business as usual. I just don't think we can just say, too bad the Ag Society operated outside of its, you know, we're gonna override the Ag Society's decision-making, because it seems pretty prudent from a dollars and cents standpoint, it's pretty prudent. And as costs continue to increase, you know, it's gonna get, you know, that delta is gonna get wider and wider. So I guess the bottom line is, I would be supportive of something that allows for a 6-month, you know, reprieve. I'd like for it to be the Agricultural Society's decision to do that. We certainly could encourage them to do that by putting some additional resources in, and then, you know, take charge of the conversation to what does this look like in the future.
So I wasn't asked about this because apparently.
You were next on my list.
Okay, there you go. Well, because you already knew the answer, because I already expressed that I felt that the eviction was unfair to the people who are paying. I'm not saying that it's unfair to the people who aren't paying, except it's a very unwise move to evict a horse that you've got a lien on, which I already mentioned. And that's not the way you should operate when you've got your lien. You should keep your lien, because if you get rid of the horse and the person, you're gonna lose your lien rights, or it's gonna effectively lose them. But I have always felt that it was unwise and unfair for you to evict people that have been long paying. So I've already asked a lot of questions today that show my sentiments, and I expressed them 2 weeks ago as well. So I believe, and I'm not gonna put a time frame on this, my understanding now, and I'm not gonna make a final judgment, but I believe that this matter has been mismanaged by the Agricultural Society. I believe that you have not maintained proper books and records. I don't think that there's been proper review over this or accounting for it. I'm concerned about how you've handled cash payments. I'm concerned about the fact that and I don't know if this is true, I'll mention it, maybe you can clear it up, because it's been rumored, and that is that there was a shredding company on a Sunday at your offices. Was that false? Maybe it was.
I have no,
You don't know
no
anything about it?
knowledge of any shredding. I don't even know if we
Okay,
have shredding or not.
I'm not saying that.
But you just did.
I did because it's out there. And I'm just clearing the air.
There's a
Because you
lot
can have a
in this
right to say, nope, it's not true, and that's great. But
That is
it's-
not true.
Okay, that's good, and I'm not saying that it is true. That's why I asked the question. But when I'm being raised it and people are telling me about it and they're writing me about it, I'm asking the question only for that reason. And then that clears the air, that isn't the case. Now, having said this, look, it seems to me that what the answers that you've given, and there's no insolvency here, because your net revenue with your other revenue, which is being generated primarily because of the fair. That's the big revenue you get, is the fair itself. And you also, we built at our cost that event center that you rent out and you manage, but we paid for that. The county did. And so that's producing, I guess, positive revenue, which is offsetting some of the loss here. But remember, I mean, shoot, this county just spent a lot of money, has indicated it's gonna spend a lot of money to keep tennis here. And I was in favor of that. But we make a lot of money off of the Racino with the horses that are necessary for that. And that's a benefit that's more than, what is it, Martin, that we've been making on average every year?
I'd go back the average, I would say it's probably north of 2.5 million, but I mean, I can get the specific numbers.
And this year, up through September, what is it? I think you gave it was over 2.5.
Through September, we've received 2.7 million from the Racino.
Right. And that's 3 quarters. So we don't have the last quarter of revenue. So in other words, this county is making a lot of money on this. I appreciate the sentiment that Commissioner Jones stated, but I also appreciate that, if I was to summarize your statement today, it is that if you got the $150 a month and you receive that money from your boarders, you would maintain this operation. Am I wrong about that?
As far as the future, I can't speak to that. That's a board decision.
Okay, well, I thought that I already got that from you. So
Next Monday, we can discuss that
all
as
right,
a board.
because I believe this much. One, I'm not gonna put a time limit on correcting this. I believe that you must manage your contracts properly. You must keep good records. You must keep good financial records. You must account to it for us, because I believe we have an oversight function owning this property, and under the lease, which is gone, we had a right to those financial records, which we were not obtaining. I do not believe you're insolvent if you continue to do this, because I think you have considerable cash flow that's profitable from your other operations. However, I don't want to lock you in. You have to make the decision as to how you run this operation, but you run it properly. You run it transparently. You run it with proper management. You run it by you informing people. I've asked a lot of questions today where you're not giving them written notices. You're not keeping track of how this is happening. You don't know the answer. And I'm not being critical of you. You seem like a really nice, sincere person. And I accept all of that. But you're not the one running this operation. You've got a lot of people that I guess are staff. You have paid staff running this place?
We have an office manager, and we have an accounting specialist, and we have a maintenance manager.
And so who is accountable for the defalcations that we've mentioned today? I mean, so I'm not trying to terminate anybody, but the kind of things that we've established just today suggest to me that maybe, I'm not saying that you should get rid of somebody, but it isn't the paying horse people.
The board of volunteers has to answer your question, the board of volunteer directors oversees
Okay,
the business.
all right.
But ultimately, they're responsible, they're volunteers, and
No, I'm talking about the people they pay. I'm talking about the people that manage it, that they pay, that are their staff. The people that should be responsible to maintain this operation, to make sure that the rents are being paid, to enforce the lien rights, to understand what the law is. That's what I'm talking about. That's not being done. The people that should be given notices, the people that are delinquent, the people that are allowing cash to come in and maybe not keeping track of it. That's what I'm talking about. You're paying people to manage this operation, and those people have failed you. They failed us, haven't they? And you see, I believe that people that are staff people being paid, not volunteers, God bless you for volunteering for this. That's great. But even when you volunteer, you have fiduciary obligations to the public. And you have oversight responsibilities to make sure that this is being properly managed by your people. And it's not being. You got code violations, per se, there's a problem. Now, I realize that they maybe haven't been out there. But why they're raising it all of a sudden right now, and there's no coincidence to them coming in here and trying to talk about or have a tour and maybe do some leases or buying property. No coincidence there at all. Am I supposed to believe that? I kind of don't. So, look, I'm not upset with you. I think you're a really nice person. And everything I've heard about you is that way. But I think you've got a problem with the management of these contracts, and you should solve that problem before you take it out on people that pay.
I appreciate you being here today. These are never easy meetings, and I've heard you loud and clear that the volunteer board has said that they don't want to be in this business. You all have to decide under what circumstances you may be willing to be in this business. But I've heard you don't want to be in this business any longer, and you get to decide that. I would just say that I would not put all the blame on the Agricultural Society. I accept some of the blame on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. We should have known we did not have a lease, and we did not know that. We should have demanded that to the extent that we thought we had a lease that required you to turn over financial information to ensure that that happened. So I put that, that some of that responsibility on me too. So you're not out here alone. I think everybody bears some responsibility, and it is in that heart with which I, come full circle back to you, Dave, to say, look, I hope that, I think reasonable people can come together as a way to temporarily, buy us some time, if you will, to be able to work out a longer-term solution, for which I accept my responsibility in this too. And so, all of the very good points that have been made notwithstanding, at the end of the day, I'd like to just see us be able to find some time to chart a path forward that makes sense for the entire community.
very good. Well, I appreciate comments from both of my colleagues, and I think my direction to you is to go to your board, report back to them of, number one, the concerns of the board, the ideas of particularly Commissioner Grossman relative to some of the in-the-weeds type of things that you can do, which are very helpful, in my opinion. And at the bigger picture, give everyone some breathing room, that we are willing to come in and do something. We'll work with Martin and come up with some sort of supplemental to you guys to make sure you can get caught up. It's not okay that you're behind in bills. And then I would suggest, Commissioner Jones had a good idea, that we are part of this, as opposed to
Yes.
literally not knowing about it until a few weeks ago, that we are now going to be part of this committee that's formed with some of the tenants, with the association, possibly with Miami Valley, and with obviously the Fair Board. I would suggest that Commissioner Grossman sit on that committee as our subject matter expert on this and work out a path forward. But I would suggest, because again, in my opinion, it shouldn't be open-ended forever, that tell your board that we're willing to support this through May 1. Hopefully you work out something longer, but we don't want people kicked out starting December 1st. Again, your decision at your board, but I think you're hearing that from your board, the owners, that that's our path.
Will you advocate for rescission of the eviction notice? To the people who are paying. I believe that you have some rights for people who are not paying to deal with them properly, although I would warn you, again, don't evict horses that you've got a lien right on.
Yeah, that's part of my whole thing, is no one's getting evicted December 1st.
Right, oh,
Yeah.
I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that you cannot proceed with action to collect past due amounts that are owed. You should be doing that. But do it in a proper way that is effective, and get some proper advice on that.
Thank you. We do have a regularly scheduled board meeting on Monday, the 18th, 7 o'clock in the event center, so I look forward to taking this before the board. Thank you for your time today. Despite the circumstances, it's been a pleasure speaking with each of you. And if there's anything in the future that you need from the Agricultural Society, please don't hesitate to contact me.
But before you go, when are you meeting next with your board?
Monday, the 18th.
Okay, so our next meeting is the following Tuesday. If you guys do not rescind this, this eviction, I'd like you to come back, if the pleasure of this board, the next morning to explain why you're not doing that, okay?
Yes, sir.
Would you do that? And David, if you please, I mean, I think it would be appropriate if we could hear from any of the renters if they have any comments. Do you want to open up on that?
They've won, I don't know.
Okay,
Bird in hand.
Yeah, it's,
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
yeah. And just so everybody knows, I don't plan on hearing from everyone today, simply because
But maybe the
Commissioner Grossman's an attorney, I don't know if you know, you gotta win, okay? I mean, just take it and run, so.
Yeah, for
Is there something
clarification-
about the white shirts are on going on? Everybody, I like white too, by the way, but I only.
Yeah, the horsemen are united in white towards the common cause, which we share with you folks as well. So, if I may, I'd like to hand out
Sure.
a,
You need to give your name and your address and everything.
yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Scott.
Good morning. As a matter of an introduction, I am Scott Hagemeyer. Everybody here knows me on behalf of my role locally as a Washington Township trustee. I stand before you today wearing a different hat. In addition to a variety of different public roles, I'm one of the Board of Director members for the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association. I'd also like to recognize and thank our Vice President, Mr. Randy Haynes, and past President, Mr. John Mossberger, that have traveled quite a distance to support this cause. The information I presented to you is going to get a lot abbreviated because you've covered a fair amount of this, and I'd like to thank Ms. Lettner for supporting most of my comments in here. As a point of clarification, Ohio is the #1 state in America for harness racing. Nobody exceeds us. We offer more breeding opportunities, more racing opportunities than anywhere in the country. What the commissioners may not know, and I'm fairly certain the Ag Society does not know, is that Warren County is the #1 largest training facility in the state. Ag Society run. There is one other private facility south of Columbus that does have a larger volume of horses. But in the entire state, Warren County is the #1 Ag Society run facility. This is based in part to proximity, as discussed, to the Miami Valley Racino right here in Lebanon, the Dayton Racetrack, Scioto Downs just in the Columbus area, with the fourth one being up in Cleveland. The Ohio Harness Horsemen Association has had a long-standing partnership with the Ohio Farm Bureau. It is well known, equine agriculture goes hand in hand. There's a well-known economic impact in the state of Ohio of more than $2.8 billion. If divided equally amongst the 88 counties, that's $31.8 million per county. Warren County is not average. We are the #3 county in Ohio for equine population, a large percentage of those which comes from harness racing. I've got a host of stats. I think we've all agree the significance of harness racing in the state as well as Warren County specifically. But harness racing exists at the 4 commercial tracks for a total of 455 racing days per year. That's not a misprint. There's only 365 days in a year. There are 455 racing days. Some of that is due to an overlap. Northfield Park in Cleveland races 209 racing days. The other 3 tracks in this part of the country race for 4-month segments at a time. Harness racing exists at 66 of our county and independent fairs across the state of Ohio, with 75 racing days in a very short window of time between the end of June and beginning of October. Harness racing training centers are available at approximately 62 of these county fairs. County agricultural societies. I won't get into the weeds, to your point, Mr. Young. But there's some commentary down there regarding the number of registered stallions over the last recent years, number of mares bred, babies born. But a very important point to recognize, the state of Ohio has 3 primary commercial auctions every year for our yearling standardbreds. The Ohio Selected Sale, also known as the Jug Sale, is recognized industry-wide as the premier sale in the state. This year, 2024, saw the 2nd highest gross revenue in the entire history of harness racing. That just goes to prove that Ohio has shown constant growth year after year, continues to be a vibrant industry that goes hand in hand with Ohio agriculture. The Ohio Harness Horsemen Association takes a very proud role in supporting harness racing across the state. In part, our association is the presenting sponsor at the Ohio Fair Managers Association Annual Conference. We offer multiple training seminars and educational resources to educate the agricultural board members that aren't familiar with our industry. There was commentary about the association stepping up financially. The Ohio Harness Horsemen Association in 2024 began paying $13,000 per year to every agricultural society in Ohio that offers racing during their county fair. In previous years, that number was $12,000 per year to every agricultural society that offers fair racing. Warren County specifically, within the last 5 years, between that fair support and 2 grants, has earned over $74,000 that has been paid directly from the Ohio Harness Horsemen Association to the Warren County Ag Society. This is an important point to understand. Mel Hagemeyer, my dad, sitting right there in the office, in the audience, is the retired general manager of Lebanon Raceway. He served on the Warren County Ag Society for 18 years. Prior to that, his dad, Maynard Hagemeyer, whose photo is on the wall out here, having served a partial term as a Warren County commissioner. Maynard Hagemeyer served on the Ag Society for 42 years. For those combined service of 6 decades, harness racing at the Warren County Ag Society was profitable. It didn't need subsidies. It made its own money. As we've determined this morning, Warren County Ag Society has a host of internal challenges. They are poorly managing their expenses and insufficiently pursuing the revenue streams. One point that was made today was regarding their staff. It's my understanding that most, if not all of their staff is brand new since September 1. We're talking 10 weeks ago. These folks, I don't even doubt their goals are to do the right thing. They're brand new. They've done it for 10 weeks. I won't get into the weeds with all the specifics, but, because again, we've established that their records are challenged. The document that they handed to you, I know there was a reference to Exhibit 1, which may or may not be in your current packet, but it was emailed to you ahead of time. It's my understanding that their entire board that met yesterday saw that same paperwork yesterday. And we're given just a few hours to review it. And to my understanding, it was emailed to them 2 or 3 times with different amendments and different versions. So again, without a doubt, they have challenges. And I won't get into the real specifics on that. Mr. Grossman, you mentioned your past experience about manure removal. Hands down, without any fraction of a doubt, that is their single largest expense.
It was my single largest time was involved with that.
All day long, hey, you and I do the same thing.
I'm really involved with it.
Right.
Yeah, well, I had some on me this morning before I got here, so. I've stood before this board in support of agriculture years ago when a local EPA licensed composting facility was in place. That facility provided 100% of manure removal from the Warren County Ag Society. Back then, those large 30-yard dumpsters were $60 to remove. That's cheap. That's really cheap. I bet the Ag Society would love to pay that bill today. When that facility was no longer an option, the current service provider stepped in. For the same service was charging somewhere $200 to $250 per bin. That's a 3 to 4 time increase. The same service provider during their current contract is charging $500 per manure bin. The costs are not manageable. It's beyond reason to expect the Ag Society at any revenue to manage that expense ongoing.
What are other counties doing with their manure disposal? Do you know? Because I
would like to
I have an
think-
operation, as you know, with like 60 to 70 horses, which at the 200 level is, okay, I'm a third. And I never paid anybody to do it. We deliver it to people who sell it. So I don't understand this economic issue.
I support the cause completely. You and I are in the same business, so I don't spend $500 for a 30-yard dumpster to get rid of it either.
There's got to be a way to manage this better.
There is, but the question is, and you've already posed the question to the Ag Society, why don't they know the answer? Why haven't they explored other options? Why haven't they reached out to local farmers? Why haven't they used the Ohio Fair Managers Association as a resource? Ask others what they're doing, what
And we
works.
sold our manure to farmers to spread on their fields. We sold them to gardeners, and we sold them to other people who were middlemen for doing exactly that.
Yeah,
Never paid a
absolutely.
dime to get rid of our manure, except it spent my time putting it into a dump truck. We own 2 dump trucks and delivering it to people.
Absolutely, yeah, and I do the same thing. We used to put a sign out by the front of the road that said, free horse manure. City people driving by thought we were nuts. But everybody in the agricultural community that likes to have a little garden in their backyard, perfect opportunity. But to your point, Why doesn't the Ag Society know that? Why did they spend $144,000 last year on manure removal without exploring other options? They are simply not managing their expenses appropriately. And if you eliminate or significantly reduce $144,000, there's not a need to make an adjustment to their stall rent. Manage your expenses, not you. Manage their expenses, and the stall rent is adequate. Past due stall rent was questionable on how it was reported. I've got specific examples and I won't go into that. I do pretty generally agree with Ms. Lettner's representation that there's approximately $53,000 in unpaid stall rent. I want to be very clear, and I've said this publicly and I've said it to the individual horsemen as well. On behalf of the Ohio Harness Horsemen Association, our board members that are here, we 100% support the Ag Society's right to evict and collect past due stall rent. There is no reason these horsemen are not paying that bill. We're not asking them to be financially responsible for horsemen and women that are not responsible for themselves. 100% of that money should be collected, 100% of that money should be paid, and if that's not the case, by all means, pursue every legal recourse to get that money. $57,000 is a lot of money. $53,000 is a lot of money. However, what they didn't present last week, by way of a public records request, I had asked for a couple documents regarding their financials. I met with 2 of their board members and their current bookkeeper, recognizing she's only served in that role full-time since September 1st. The information they presented to me showed $86,058 is past due. That's an exorbitant amount of money. But looking through the document, they presented this to me on November 7th. By their own admission, November 10th is when the deadline is to pay your board bill. They reflected 100% of invoices billed with only a very small percentage that was paid because it wasn't even due. When we eliminated that misunderstanding, the number dropped down to $57,000 through the end of October. Again, that's a significant number and needs to be addressed. But when you compare, according to their own document, according to their own records, how much was billed and how much was actually paid through the end of October, 90%. 90% of these horsemen are paying their bills, yet they voted to eliminate 100% with limited to no notice. The question was posed about their financials, cash payments, check payments, or online payments. As discussed, they email invoices to their stall renters. Simple process, no printing costs, no postage. There's a host of payment options available. One of which is to reply to that email. There's a link via QuickBooks to make that payment. Very simple electronic transaction, and a number of the horsemen use that. Second option is to go and pay in person. I agree with your sentiment, Mr. Grossman, cash payments leave too much to question. But some people in the horse industry, that's just how they're comfortable. Cash payments, in-check payments, or an in-hand credit card payment can be made through a point-of-sale kiosk at in their office. Additionally, there's a payment option, a payment link on the fairgrounds website, which to my understanding uses Square as a pay method. This document and most of the ones that you got presented, spreadsheets are manually recorded. It's data entry. Somebody's got to type the numbers in, and they have to type them in correctly. All these payment options do not communicate internally. With today's technology, there's no reason that doesn't exist. For God's sakes, Hagemeyer Farms out in Clarksville does better than us, a lot better than us. In 2023, during the single day of the fair racing, every participant is required to pay a $100 entry fee. There were approximately 80 entries that day, totaling $8,000. To this day, the Ag Society has no idea where those checks went. They're lost, they're gone. They're probably in Rumpke somewhere. That's $8,000 that they did not collect.
Wait a second, repeat that again? They, checks were paid to them that they didn't deposit?
Mhm.
How do we know that?
Oh, they'll tell you that
Because the
themselves.
people who wrote them the check kept a record of it, it was never withdrawn from their account.
Yes, sir, 100%.
All right.
Approximately totaling $8,000. Recognizing this host of financial challenges, State Representative Scott Lips and Senator Steve Wilson have spoke with Ohio Auditor Keith Faber and strongly encouraged a 5-year, in-depth, full audit to be performed of the Ag Society's books. I think it's just prudent that the Ag Society members themselves understand their own internal finances.
Well, they mentioned that an audit is taking place right now.
To my understanding, that's part of like an agreed-upon procedures audit. What Auditor Keith Faber is interested in is a more in-depth dive. There was a host of sunshine law violations. You guys mentioned, as a township trustee, we're all very familiar with the requirements that everything's public. There's no closed-door meetings. There were select board members that would meet prior to a meeting. And on October 21st, 2024, the Ag Society voted to evict it's closer to 250 horses without any concern for their families that would be displaced, no concern or knowledge of options that were available for these horses.
By the way, before you go on, Bruce, is the Agricultural Society covered by our sunshine laws?
I can't answer that question without doing an analysis.
Okay. I just want to make sure the public understands that they might not be applicable to them because they might not be a public body that the sunshine law applies to. But in addition, even when you have a group, like say Mason City Council that I was on for 11 years, and you have 7 members, you have to have a quorum for the sunshine laws to apply. The reason why township trustees and commissioners can never talk and convince with each other is because 2 people makes a quorum.
Right.
Okay.
Understood, okay. As a point of clarification, and again, recognizing the Ohio Harness Horsemen Association knows a little bit about this stuff, within a 1-hour drive from downtown Lebanon, there are not available training centers that could house these horses. So if December 1st deadline comes to fruition, which I understand the commissioner's direction that was offered to the Board of County, the Board of
What's a
the Agricultural
recommendation
Society.
made to them?
Right, yes. But again, within a 1-hour drive, there is not space for these 300 horses. It doesn't exist. Again, there's an obvious clarity on the lease. The question is, does the Ag Society even have the authority to generate an eviction notice on property they don't own and don't currently have a lease under? I'm not a lawyer, that's more of a question.
They do.
Okay. But again, I appreciate the county commissioner's direction. Going into this, our goal was 2 things. First and foremost, to eliminate this December 1st deadline. It was unreasonable by every stretch of the imagination. Secondly, our goal was to extend the opportunity continue training while reasonable discussions were considered going forward through the Miami Valley Meet, which is the first weekend in May. And third, the more longer-term goal is to generate a positive working relationship between all parties, the Ag Society, the Horsemen, and the commissioners, for the better good of Warren County in whole. Lastly, the very last page was a letter I received at 11:30 last night from the Warren County Farm Bureau. And I'll just paraphrase part of the last paragraph here. To achieve this goal, Warren County Farm Bureau encourages open discussion regarding all agricultural issues in Warren County and the state of Ohio. If the Warren County Farm Bureau can be of assistance for any agricultural issue, please feel free to reach out so that we can help find a solution that is mutually beneficial for all parties. We have two more presenters that are a lot less winded than I am. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Well, we appreciate your perspective. We known you a long time, Scott. We like you. We respect your opinion. And yeah, essentially, I think you got what you were asking for before you even asked. So.
100%, thank you.
All right, very good.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, and thanks for clarifying their staff. So I kind of piggyback some of my comments about the staff, they're all new.
They're all brand new. And incidentally, in response to your question, Mr. Grossman, about their September invoices compared to what they actually were paid, they presented this information to me Thursday. Two of their board members and their current bookkeeper.
Does it show their receipts for September?
It does, yeah. So for the month of September, they billed $38,675, and as of the end of the month, they were paid $28,959, a difference of about $9,000. Now, interesting enough,
Does it
taking
show
into
since
account.
then whether any further of that 9,000 has been collected?
Yeah, that was my next comment.
Well,
So
that's what I
in the
asked.
month of October, they billed $43,055. They received $57,700 in the month of October. And
So they knew that information,
they
provided to
presented me
you.
this document
and when did they provide that to you?
Thursday morning at 10:30.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like you're volunteer number 2 for our committee.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I welcome the opportunity on behalf of the Ohio Harness Horsemen Association, and our next speaker is, represents the Warren County Harness Horsemen Association. I'll let him represent himself. And, yeah, we absolutely look forward to being part of the forward-going discussion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, commissioners and all interested attendees. I thank everybody for the support that we were able to get this morning on this very important topic. My name is Brent Tarter. I have recently accepted the position of president of the Warren County Horsemen's Association. I have been in the Warren County suburbs of both Mason as well as Lebanon over the last 15 years. I'm an active racehorse owner and breeder in the community, and I've been participating in the sport for over 25 years, just to give you a little credentialing. I am thrilled to be part of this new organization, which I think is right in line with some of the comments that have been made by you as commissioners about really a positive next step as we try to move forward collectively in collaboration. I think there's been a lot of challenges over the last few years where the level of communication and collaboration ultimately was not nearly where it needed to be. I will be the first to mention that the horsemen have some side have work to do on our side of the business. We touched upon that. From a paying standpoint, we take complete responsibility for that. We, along with the Warren County Commissioners, do not feel it is appropriate for our horsemen to have past due bills and not manage them appropriately. On our side, we've also had multiple conversations, been participating in some of the board meetings, and I think even we know through some of the information that's been provided that the Fair Board today has some challenges internally on their side too. One of the things that we want to do is we want to show a positive step moving forward. And again, I'm not going to go through my whole presentation. You can have that for reference, but I just want to talk about this as we move forward, because I think that's really the focus that we need to have. I appreciate the openness and candor and transparency that the commissioners have showed today, and really listening to the horsemen and understand that there's more work to do here. There's more homework, there's more investigation, there's more discussion, and we want to be a part of that. The Warren County Horsemen's Association want to be a key partner in helping the Fair Board solve the challenges they face. Our job is let's work together and not slam the door shut. This is a business challenge that many businesses face. Ultimately, it becomes a math exercise driven by financial priorities and principles. It can't and shouldn't become a personal attack towards or against anyone on either side of the fence on this key issue. Revenue and expense management is a basic element of running an organization. And I think you can see, and as you heard, there are questions that we both face on either side of the fence on this subject. There's too much to lose in this entire Warren County agriculture community by shutting down the fairgrounds. The harness horse legacy, the trainers, the horses, the families, and the multitude of both small and large businesses impacted will forever change the agricultural landscape of this community. Thanks for understanding and supporting and working to get this eviction decision revoked. And I appreciate the direction that you've supplied to the current Fair Board about asking for a delay and a revisiting this topic for a period of time so that we can work collectively to figure this out together. We need this element, and we've talked about it, of panic and chaos for the horsemen. With a decision and giving them 42 days to change their lives, it impacts too many who are involved. We've got to work to make sure that we work together to come up with the right decision and solve for the problems at hand. Commissioners, I thank you for your time and your consideration, and I look forward to our future steps and engagement, not only working with you, but also the Fair Board, the Agricultural Board. That's our goal. We want to open lines of communication, work together to solve this key issue for the county. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, thank you. Very good. Scott, did you have somebody else that you wanted to speak, or are we good? Ready to go.
One more speaker, and then we'll be respectful of your time.
Make it brief, Neil.
My name's Neil Snecker. I've lived in the county all my life. I own a farm east of Lebanon, and I have a feed business. I manufacture and sell feed a lot at the raceway and everybody else in the county. I don't know if I sell you feed, Mr. Grossman, but I'm going to tap
But somebody on the Ag Society board wrote me and said they sold me feed. So, maybe not you.
And you said everything here today, but just briefly, a lot of things are concerned. There's a lot of hay, bedding, livestock feed, horse feed, cars, trucks, homes that are here in Warren County by these horsemen. So if there's any way possible for us to, for them to work together, that would be very appreciated. So I think we've said everything here, so I'm going to let it go at that.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's going to conclude this, because I think sounds like we're on the same page. I want to be respectful of everyone else's time too. I appreciate the Fair Board, your presentation. You represented them well. Obviously, nothing's perfect. We appreciate the folks on the other side of this argument. The only folks that I'm really, really upset with are the people that caused this inflation the last 4 years out of Washington, D.C., where now everybody's
I hope we just We'll solve that problem.
I think we've taken a couple of steps. A little parting gift. Okay. Well, very good. We appreciate everyone's time. Is there anything else to come before us? Very good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And yes. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave.